Hopefully this planet will still work for another 2 or 3 million years, and in 50 or 60 years, somebody looks back and says, that season, 16-17, was a really wonderful season. We played this, we won this, and all that stuff. That's what I want, because that is what life is for, and especially a football life is for. Jurgen Klopp just yesterday deciding to coin some sheer joy and optimism here around this gaff that we call Liverpool Football Club. Hello and welcome. This is the new season. We are all excited here on the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. John Gibbons, Alison McGovern, Rob Gutmann, all in front of me. A huge range of games. 38 of them, I believe, opens out in front of us. Are we ready? Are Liverpool ready? Rob Gutmann, are you ready?
Oh, yeah. And how? I'm primed. Yes, Neil, I'm very, very ready. I'm as excited as Jurgen. Just slightly disappointed he only thinks the planet might have 2 or 3 million more years. That's affected some of my mortality planning. And
but it'll still work.
Yeah.
So it might just be here, but a bit broke.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'll not pull him up on semantics here. But, yeah, I'm excited, Neil, yeah. What a season awaits.
Alison, are you excited?
I'm thrilled. I can't wait. I'm really excited about that. If the planet still works, it's like weaving in a climate change message there. You know, I'd expect nothing less.
That's Jurgen for you.
Yeah.
John Gibbons, up until 7 o'clock, we're going to be asking if this is a good summer for the Reds, and after 7 o'clock, we'll be looking ahead to the Arsenal game. Which of those two things are you more looking forward to?
The football. The lads kicking it around.
Yeah. I mean, it is a reminder, John, that there's all the messing around. You can talk about the transfers and all this sort of stuff, but someone put today, there was something about some nonsense on Sky Sports News, and I think it was our friend Simon who put there was a screenshot of most Googled managers in 2016, and he put football in 2016, and I agree with Simon about a lot of things, but what actually occurred to me was no, that's not football. Football, there's 11 lads and 11 other lads and a ball in the middle and 2 sets of fans chanting. That's football. The rest of it's the same ephemera it always was. You might as well look at the back of the Daily Post.
Yeah, footy's still the same. Footy's still the nerves. I'm going to be nervous as anything on Sunday, because you've got that feeling of wanting to make a really good start, knowing that it matters, knowing for Liverpool in seasons gone by we've actually sort of set the tempo by what we've done on the first day, and so there'll be the nerves, but there'll be the excitement, there'll be the delight of, you know, being all together and all the people we love going to footy with, all us going down to see the Reds, and they're going to come out and we're going to clap them, and it's going to be brilliant.
Okay, and you're going to all 38, I believe.
That's the aim. Yeah, I haven't got tickets for Spurs. Yeah, so that's worrying me a bit. But I'm sorted for the first 2 of the 38, and the aim is to do all 38.
Glorious stuff. All right, opening question is who is going down? Who is going down from the Premier League this season? Been hinted at a couple of times around and about. Alison McGovern, what 3 are you going for?
Oh God, I don't know.
Don't say Everton, Alison. You might.
No, that's so funny. The first thing I thought was like, can I get away with saying Everton? But no, they're probably not. And like last season, it was so like, it. Of course, it was about Leicester, but it was also, I thought the other massive story coming out of last season was who went down. There was some big old battles there. Maybe like, you know, Sunderland was so lucky. Maybe I'd go for them. I don't know.
You're going to go with I don't know. It's a bold move for the first question.
Possibly Sunderland, but I really can't say Everton.
You can't say Everton, no, and they're probably not going to. John Gibbons.
Everton. Hull appear to have given up. And I
really do appear to have given up.
And I'm sort of with Alison in that I think it might just, well, I say by sort of, I mean because she didn't fully commit. I think it's maybe a year too far for Sunderland. I'm not even sure they've got a manager at the moment.
David Moyes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just back. Moyes. Davy Moyes.
No, I think Sunderland might be all right. Maybe a year too far for Swansea.
Year too far for Swansea.
I agree. They're the first name for me to go down, the Swans. I want it to be Sunderland, but Moisey is a football genius, and I think this is his level. He will excel. He will get them to 14th or something.
Swansea
like
have just paid 50 million quid for a lad who scored 18 La Liga goals last season for El Bar.
What's his name?
Thiago Aspas.
His name is... I'm not entirely sure what his name is. Borja is his name.
Borja, oh yeah.
Yeah, and they've got Llorente, who played for Atletico Madrid.
He's old.
Oh, okay.
Atletico Bilbao, sorry. Atletico Bilbao.
They lost Ayew.
They lost Ayew. He flattered to deceive.
Yes.
They've lost the captain.
But that's the big one. They've
lost
Jesus. The man who's going to keep Everton up, Ashley Williams.
I don't really care who goes down because Norwich are down already. That's the bottom line. I think 2 of those that are promoted are bound to go down.
You were saying before, it hasn't got I would told you.
I think Hull will go.
In the mix will be the 3 that came up, Bournemouth and Swansea, and Sunderland. I hope not, because Jordan Ibe's going to storm, get his 20 goals and prove me right.
And Bournemouth is a serious night out.
I think
Yes,
right.
yeah, there's that.
You worry a little bit about Burnley, like what they're going to do different to last time, because they played quite well last time and just got about 35 points, which, you know, is a number, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
And you worry that what are they going to do to get to 42, 44, and it's hard, isn't it? It's hard.
I think I'd be even more prepared to commit about Burnley. Probably.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah,
I think Burnley and Hull are going to be in the shake-up. Middlesbrough might be all right. Watford. Everyone forgets that Watford are in the league.
Yeah.
I reckon if I got you to name the 20, you'd be sitting on 19 for ages.
They've kept hold of them strikers, though, haven't they?
They have, John. They have kept hold of them strikers.
There's 8 teams I counted, I think, the other day who are clearly rubbish in our league. Who definitely aren't going to trouble.
So first, Everton.
No. The Blues are my tip for the title. They're my dark horses.
You contrarian.
Yeah, I'm blue curious.
You're always blue curious. All right, then we'll move ourselves along towards the fact that Liverpool aren't going to go down. At least we hope not. It'd be unlikely. It's been a good season or not. There's 3 ways to look at it if you want to look at it in the transfer market, but we want to come on to the proper football quickly. Business in, business out, and how our rivals have done. And then there's looking at it through other ways and means as well. For instance, the manager had time to work with the players, the way pre-season's gone. None return from international duty with serious injuries. The general vibe around the club, the ideal. But we'll do the lads in and the lads out first. You broadly speaking happy, Mr. Gutmann?
Yeah, I am. If I disregard what's going on around us, because that can always cause you misery. And actually, as long as I can remember, other teams buying players that I'd wish we'd have bought has caused me misery. But if I just look at our business in isolation, yeah, I am broadly happy. It reminds me a bit of that sort of root and branch recruitment that Houllier did in his first season. At the end of the beginning of his first proper season, where he brings in a keeper, he brings in a couple of defenders, a midfielder, a couple of attackers. It feels like it's. Yeah, there's all kinds of practical solutions all over the recruitment here. I like the shape of it.
John, are you broadly speaking happy? Is there something you would like to have seen more of?
Well,
either a position, a type, or a bigger name?
Funnily enough, we did an unwrap show on this. We went into a lot of detail on this on Wednesday, which
you're telling me you
get
did
on Tour Player. And I kind of figured out from that there was 5 things I wanted to see from Liverpool this summer, and I think we've done 3 of them, which isn't bad.
What are the 3? What are the 3 that we have done, and what are the 2?
So keeper.
Yep.
Sorting out our central defence in terms of aerial dominance, so bigger lads at centre half, and pace up top.
Okay,
and I think we've done them. We haven't got a left back.
We haven't, John,
which is bananas, bordering on incompetence from someone. And I wanted to
name names, John. Name names.
I don't know. Whoever's job it is to get a left back needs to have a way with himself if they haven't done it at the end of the month. It should have been a designated role. You know, like I don't know, like a cabinet position, left back,
Secretary of State for left back.
Exactly, yeah, that's your job to sort it. It was that important that it should have been individual, and there should be someone who we can hold account by the end of the summer if we haven't done it. And the central midfielder I wanted, that was more of a personal thing. I know we've got Gruyachin, but someone who I knew. I wanted, and I don't think we've really done that. But that. You know, we'll wait and see on that one how important that goes. But 3 out of 5 isn't bad.
Are you happy, Alison? Are you happy with what's gone on? Are you happy with the type of footballers Liverpool have had us?
I'm going to go with no. Partly because, by my calculation, net we've spent about 15 million, and that doesn't feel like enough to me. I mean, maybe this is a wrong way of looking at it. Maybe, you should always just start with the team, and, whatever the figure is that you spend in the end is what the figure is, and you shouldn't worry about that. But I kind of think that the whole Leicester malarkey was a fluke in what is otherwise a pretty direct connection between wage bill and points. And I think I wouldn't have minded seeing a level of commitment.
You wouldn't mind seeing a bigger name in a couple of places?
Yeah, I think partly a bigger name, perhaps a bit more. We've kind of gone for the fairly young or people who've got experience but not necessarily at the top level. And there's not a particular name. I haven't got that feeling, that pang of guilt that in years gone by when you saw Arsenal had signed whoever it was, that you feel like that should have been us, man. But I do feel like. I think it's all right. I think the signings have been good. I think, especially on the keeper, I think, right choice. But I just think strategically it's not quite there. So I'm being controversialist just for the sake of it, really. But I think that it's, we're not quite there, and maybe it is about the backroom staff and not having the right names coming up.
This is my Stardust point. It would have been nice to have one sprinkling. It would have been nice to have one. I think this is the sort of and I completely understand the building of the team and all that sort of stuff and all that sort of logic, but there is something intangible, isn't there, Rob, about the idea of signing someone and everyone goes, can't believe they got him.
There's always, it does feel like this nearly every summer, because we forever, it seems like, have signed a lot of lads in the summer, and it's the need to gild the lily. You always get to that point and go, come on, just give us one more. In fact, I'm going to hark back again to that Houllier first proper summer, because just when he bought everyone, he then went and bought Didi Hamann. And I was ecstatic, and I suddenly thought, yeah, we are going to win the league. I think we finished 4th, but still. If we went out and bought a modern version of Didi Hamann this week, my head would fall off, and it would be brilliant.
All about heads falling off. Very, very quickly before we go to the break, John, the other thing to point out, though, is the other positive from the window, and it's the thing that everyone always forgets, is the business out. Liverpool have not sold anyone they do not want to sell, and are not going to sell anyone they do not want to sell. Yeah,
that's the massive thing. When you put business out on here, I'm not too bothered about that in terms of, people get all excited when we get 30 million for Benteke, and I struggle to get excited when we sell players that even if unless the ones I really, really never want to see again. I just think, well, whatever, maybe it could have been some use. I'm not getting the money, and like Alice says, the net spend's quite low. But generally, it's the ones that there was only a very small sniff of Coutinho going, and then it was nipped in the bud. Never any serious talk of Daniel Sturridge leaving, and that they are real positives, because we've had summers where we've lost players. There's been plenty of them over the last 10 years. Let's face it. And so the fact that we haven't even had any drama with our big names is really nice.
And is that Klopp?
An element of it. It's probably because we haven't done very well as well. But there's an element of that, yeah.
All right. Next one on this then is Rob to talk about the watching what other people are doing. I mean, I've had a little look the last couple of days, and I'll be honest. City, United, Chelsea. All right, I'll be mildly concerned in different ways about each of them. I feel like United have got a lot of stardust. City have got unbelievable strength and depth when you sit down and look at it. And exciting young talents. Tons of exciting young talents that if they can harness. But you get the impression that they'll just harness the ones they can harness and just get rid of the others, if you know what I mean. And just sort of go, well, that's a failed experiment, but this one's worked. Chelsea have already had a number of good players, underperformed massively last season with the previous year's champions. So City, United and Chelsea, yeah, I'll be taking a bit aback. I'm not bothered by anyone else.
Of those three, I look at United and City's buying, and I think that can't help but do them some good, right? It can't help but make them have better seasons than the one they had. I don't care what they contrive to do; it should help them. And they've both improved managerially as well, so it's really hard to see them not improving their placings. Chelsea is the interesting one for me. They're excited about their manager, and rightly so. He's a manager that if they suddenly go and win the league, you'll go, well, that's Conte. We all saw that coming. Of course, it was Conte. But I don't think they've not bought the way the other two have. They've bought the centre mid Kante from Leicester. On paper, that could end up being one of the signings of the season. But you equally wouldn't be surprised if he became the player he maybe was before we'd all heard of him 12 months ago. So it's not a sure thing. Likewise, the striker they've bought. Chelsea are the one yes, of course, they'll improve. What do they finish? 10th or 11th? They'll improve on that. Will they storm back into the top three? I wouldn't put my hand on my heart with them. I probably would with United and City.
Are you worried about anyone apart from United and City, Alison?
No, I think there's definitely a north-south divide here. I think you look at the Manchester sides and you think, gulp, like, core blimey. I mean, that is really, they've spent a lot of money and, as you say, like, massive squads, and like, it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really matter if their signings work out or not. They're just, like, constantly sort of, like, recycling, but definitely want to be those kind of glitz and glamour sides where they can easily sign whoever they want to, because like who you're going to get paid oodles of cash and get a big ding dong when you go there, whereas in the big smoke it seems like there's a different kind of thing going on. And like Arsenal are the ones where I imagine Arsenal supporters would be having a really different conversation in the Anfield rap equivalent of North London. I imagine they'll be sort of like head in hand still thinking, what is it that we have to do to persuade Arsene Wenger that he wants to sign big players? It's obviously not his strategy. It's obviously not a thing that the club are interested in doing, but there's definitely a significant amount of dissatisfaction from their fans.
More on this in a second. This is the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. Amy Lawrence to come talking about that. Don't go anywhere. Meat there, belting it out, dead ringer for love. John Gibbons, we were talking there before meat and before the break. We were having a little chat about sort of who you're scared of and all this sort of stuff. I mean, the other thing to point out though is that if last season, and arguably even the season before, and maybe even the season before that tells anyone anything, that football at the moment is being played on grass and not on paper. This isn't 06-07 when it was obvious who the top four were going to be. This is the real deal now.
Yeah, it is, and I think last season showed if you just collect footballers and hope everything turns all right, you can come a cropper really against a team who've thought about how they want to play, who've thought about how those players fit in, and have had to think about the right players rather than just we'll collect footballers, then we'll let a manager work it out. I mean, Leicester were the real opposite of that last season, and they were going against teams who hadn't quite got to grips with kind of what they wanted to do on the football pitch. And I think that the big challenges this season will be the people who can do that quickly. There's a lot of new managers going around. There's a lot of new footballers, as there always is, really. But it does feel like a kind of summer of transition, if you like. And so I think whoever can hit the ground running the quickest will have the best shot. And that's why I'm pleased we've had the 8 months with Klopp that our title rivals, if you like, haven't had. We've had a good summer in terms. You talk about summers in terms of ins and outs. What's as important to me really is how early we got a lot of those players back.
Most definitely.
We had a real stroke of luck in the summer with Brazil going out early, with the England boys coming back when they did, and so you're in a kind of nice position really where Klopp's had a lot of time to have a look at them last season and work with them this summer, and I think that'll help us going into next season. And it might mean that we're the ones to hit the ground running while other teams are still trying to figure out how they want to play, or players are still trying to figure out what the manager wants.
It's the vibe around the entire enterprise, Alison, and that's it's a key thing. You mentioned Klopp before there about maybe one of the reasons why there's not been the links away, but there's also in general he's talked a lot about pre-season, he's talked a lot about getting his own players together. His own attitude is the time is now, and hopefully it's an attitude that rubs off not just on Sunday, but across the course of certainly the first 10 games.
Yeah, it's that thing that supporters of other clubs are not that keen on Liverpool fans when it comes to England playing. And England go out of an international tournament and, you have a sigh of relief and say, "Oh, thanks."
The lads are coming back.
We'll get our boys back, all in the state precisely which we sent them away in, and with a bit of extra time for them all to get together. I think that is right. It definitely helps, and there's clearly a good spirit around what Klopp's done. I don't think it's just that we didn't do that well and therefore none of them were quite targets for other teams. I do think there's a sense in which people are quite envious of us having Klopp, and a player's got to be thinking, well, why would I leave a decent manager who's probably going to help me do my best rather than take a chance on someone else.
Well, the Klopp factor, Neil. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking about our rivals still, and I was miles away thinking about, actually, no one's talking about Spurs. But let's come back. But in a sense, the thing we did learn from last season, I know people look at Leicester and go, yeah, okay, that's a freak thing. But we saw Tottenham was also a freak thing, and Liverpool could also be a freak thing. Interesting, I think there's some there's parallels with Klopp and Pochettino, I think, because they're both managers who get better than the sum of their parts. I think Alison's right, that bedding in period for Klopp is going to be, I think it should be absolutely vital, and Klopp's gone big on saying, this is my team now. He's, some people said he's put himself on the line by saying that, but, fair play to him. Last year, I think Liverpool, but for the Europa League, the commitment to the Europa League last year, were a top four side. I think you look at the gap between us and the top four by the end of it, and the points we happily gave away. I think the story of last season was less, in terms of Premier League teams, was Leicester, Spurs, and Liverpool actually, and I think that's that pattern. Well, I hope that pattern continues.
You say Spurs was a kind of freak thing. I don't think it was really. It was just because everyone else was a bit rubbish. If you look at how many points Spurs have got over the last 5 years, 6 years, they've been pretty consistent. And I would say that if you had a look, there's probably seasons where they finished on more points and finished lower, and there's seasons where I'd say there's probably about average for the last 6 seasons, and I'm sure someone will correct me if that's wrong, but that's what it felt to me. There were just the other teams weren't up there ahead of them, just winning more games, and so I think Spurs will probably be kicking themselves from last year, really, thinking, if we'd have actually kicked on like we should have, if we hadn't have tailed off so badly towards the end, the title was there for them, or at least a kind of strong finish where they're finishing second and they're going into this season with a bit more positivity. I think Spurs are the ones who are saying, well, what if we didn't manage to get more points? Because as I say, in terms of a points total, it wasn't actually that different to what they've been doing for 5-6 years and what I expect them to do next year as well, which is finish on about 70 points, play some games well, and then do all right.
But this is sorry, Alison. This is an endless debate, though, that we have, and I don't think we'll ever get the truth. Are the points the indicator of the performance, or is there a relative points total season? Like Neil, you always talk about in a 90-point season, so and so will win, but in an 80-point season, another team's got a chance. Spurs, I take your point, John, and I can't disagree entirely, but they did compete for the title. They had it within their sights, and I don't know they've had it within their sights before for a long time. But
I'm sure they enjoyed it, but I'm saying at the time, so the supporters enjoyed it, and but I think if you're looking at what to expect from Tottenham next season, I would say, well, it's the same points total that they've been getting for the last 5-6 years, and we'll see how that fares.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there must not be a Spurs fan, in from one end of North London to the other that must be thinking, God, that was the one where we could have really done it.
Yeah.
In fact, in many ways, everyone was like, oh my goodness, Leicester, that's amazing. Like, that came out of nowhere. Like, it's true, you should believe you can do anything because, like, Leicester won the league. And, like, that's not...
Stop doing my voice. Go on.
I definitely can't do your voice. I nearly tried then. But actually, the question is not like somebody unexpected was going to win it because of the fall away of the other teams. The question is, why wasn't it Spurs? Like, the question this season is, like, from this vantage point anyway, is like, does the Manchester money pay off? Does there is obviously like a real drive there from both of those teams, desperately underperforming. Does it pay off? And I'd be surprised if it didn't in some way, shape, or form.
Well, very quickly.
I might live to regret saying that, but there you go.
Well, no, very quick, and that's almost the. I think what you're sort of boiling towards is something I broadly agree with, and this is. I think
I've got it, Neil.
Go on.
Spurs last 5 seasons: 69, 72, 69, 64, 70. So they're going to get 70 points.
I've just got written down on this piece of paper here that I think you can say with a certain amount with a certain amount of certainty. Awful thing to say, awful use of words. Spurs will get somewhere between 65 and 75 points. Arsenal will get somewhere between 70 points and 80 points. The two Manchester sides, you'd expect them to get more than 75 points this campaign. So this is where I'll throw out, and this is just going off. We don't know about Chelsea. We don't know about Leicester. We don't know about Liverpool. And this is where I'll throw to you very, very quickly. I'm not actually going to, I'll throw to you the points thing, because if you were sitting here right now and you said, Neil, we got 86 points this next season, I'd go, yeah, well, I can see that happening. And if you said to me, I'm from the future, Neil, we definitely get 66 points next season, I'd go, yeah, there was always the chance that might happen. And this is the defining thing, Rob. I'll just go to you on this before we do go to the break. We are hitting 7 o'clock. This is the key marker here, is that you do feel as though you can say with a certain amount of precision, Spurs will do this, Arsenal will do this, Liverpool could do anything.
Yeah, the delta is massive. You wouldn't have a clue.
The delta is massive.
Yeah. You wouldn't have.
This show named.
I was going to say the deviation, but
I like the delta. Go on.
I genuinely don't have a clue. What is interesting about looking at the possible points totals is, because of the back of last season where we went from established 4 or 5 at the top, we're now looking at a competitive 8. Is the points that everyone should be taking off each other, unless one team emerges as really, really superior to the rest, should bring down the average points total. You're right, Liverpool's doesn't change the fact that Liverpool's is still a spread and a half. But yeah, I don't think the league's going to be won with a near 90-point total. I think it's going to be won with a near 80-point total.
This is the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. Joined here by Amy Lawrence to talk about, well, Arsenal's summer, really, how well Arsenal have summered, and it seems more of the same in a sense, Amy, and it feels as though Arsenal have become a club sort of without surprises. I just sort of think that they're going to go along, they're going to do the business this season, they're going to go at around plus or minus, sort of 2 points a game, plus or minus 5 points come the end of the season, and go from there. Could I be surprised? Could Xhaka make a difference, or is that broadly speaking correct?
I like this idea of how Arsenal have summered, and that immediately puts me in the mind of them sort of being that family that go to the same place every year.
Yeah, very much so. They're in Portugal again.
Yeah, exactly. And, they're going to the same restaurant and they recognise the same waiter and,
Everyone's pleased to see them.
You again. Yeah. Mr. Wenger, has it really been another year? So from that point of view, I think there is a sense of big familiarity, and definitely the ambience around Arsenal supporters is kind of sort of strangely twitchy, I suppose, for a pre-season, because the whole point of the summer is that you're supposed to be able to forget about last season and have a fresh slate, and everybody starts day one thinking this could be our year. But I definitely don't get the feeling from message boards and people I've spoken to that either follow or around the club that there's a huge sense of this is going to be very different. And why should it be? Because there seemed, as there has been for several years really, very obvious areas to improve, and those improvements, unless one refers to what Arsene Wenger constantly likes to call internal solutions, I've not obviously come externally. Finding that elusive 30-goal a season genius superstar central striker is an almost impossible task these days. Arsenal probably wouldn't be the only club that would love to try and find those kind of players in the supermarket. The central defensive crisis is probably one that you might have seen coming. Obviously, injuries are in pre-season are unfortunate, but if you were a seasoned Arsenal watcher, you'd look at their defence even before the end of last season and say, well, really, you'd want to get an upgrade partner for Koscielny than either Mertesacker, who can be exposed for being too slow, even though he's a player of quality and leadership skills, or Gabriel, who hasn't been convincing in the 18 months since he arrived.
I think you can make the argument for the upgrade. I'd say that Arsenal have been a little bit unfortunate in terms of the fact that they're really quite well stocked there. I mean, Chambers looks like more of a centre half than a right back these days. Holding is, we've brought him in as a centre back, and then there's Mertesacker, Gabriel, and Koscielny, like you say. He's got 2 left backs, he's got 2 right backs. It doesn't feel as though it's negligent, if you see what I mean. There's numbers.
There is numbers, but there's a point where the conversation is about quality and not quantity.
Yeah.
And any club seeks the elusive balance of the two. You want the quality and the quantity, and it's really hard in almost any position across the park to be so well stocked everywhere that you've got you can't, obviously if you have too many of a certain department, people get uppity and frustrated they're not playing as well. So it is quite a hard trick to pull off to get it absolutely right. And in many ways, if you look at Leicester last year winning the league, and I know they were the exception to all our normal rules of football, but they weren't overstocked with players. They were able to, in general, use a lot of the same players consistently, which gave them those connections and that understanding and that sort of sense of togetherness that was really so easy to manage. It almost managed itself after a while. But, the bigger clubs who compete in Europe as well and have to have bigger squads, it's not always as easy as saying, well, we've got 5 of this and 6 of that and we should have options there, because you're still sometimes dealing with players who either aren't that happy to not play regularly or find it difficult to slot straight in, because you think when you're you or I or Joe Schmo, who would give anything to be a professional footballer, that you train every day and if you get a chance you're going to suddenly slot in and do your best. But it isn't always that easy, is it?
Not far from it. And I think that the Arsenal problem in general is, and this is where, it can sound a little bit trite, but for instance, at the minute, there's talk that Oxlade-Chamberlain is going to have a good season. He's pre-seasoned really, really well. He's looked bright as anything. He's about the right age for him to kick on. But it always feels to me as though, if one player goes up a notch, another player somewhere else, whether it's through injuries or through the reality of football, that, the season that follows isn't as good as the season that isn't always as good as the season that came before. You feel as though they'll go down a notch, but then the sort of the wider issue is that Arsenal have got lots of good to very good players, and that it's actually very, very difficult to find great players. They tend to already be at certain clubs. It's very difficult to find ways to snatch them, and so therefore all the time Arsene Wenger's sitting there going with what he knows, which is this squad of players and this group of players, and being given the opportunity to take a gamble on something he might hope, but it would always be that gambling.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. The exceptional is so difficult to find, and he does have quite a lot of pretty decent players at his disposal.
Very much so.
If by any chance the chips do fall in the right way, and he's a guy who's half glass full. He looks at his squad and he looks at his players and he trusts them and he thinks if they play to their best, if Oxlade-Chamberlain or Iwobi or Joel Campbell or whichever, Ramsey, this one, that one, plays to their potential. Wow, they can really do something. But it's when they don't play to their potential and the half glass full kind of suddenly looks quite low that it all gets a bit confusing, and he doesn't really usually envisage players underperforming. And I think it's very, very simple if you look at the statistics for Arsenal, what went wrong last year. They just didn't score enough goals. And you talk about Oxlade-Chamberlain, that's a brilliant example. Do you know how many goals he scored in the league last year?
I'd be surprised if it was more than 3.
1.
There we are.
A guy in that position, in that attacking 3 that plays behind the main striker, dreamland, you really want them hitting double figures, but at least you want them to be getting the kind of
6 or
top
7s.
side. Yeah, exactly. And if you're getting 6 or 7 to 10 or to 12 from each of those 3 players, or maybe 4 or 5 who share that load, it's not bad. You can get away perhaps with not having a centre forward who knocks in 30 goals a season. Yeah. But if your main centre forward maybe isn't the most prolific in the world, and then the guys behind him are getting 1s and 2s instead of 7s and 8s, you're not going to win enough matches, are you? It's going to get you over the course of a season. So I think Arsene is looking for those players to just deliver him more goals, be more ruthless. I believe Arsenal had the most chances when people kind of collect those kind of statistics, but were something like 17th in the chance conversion rate. So that tells you where the problem lies. It's in ruthlessness and efficiency. And if the players he has can find a bit more of that, I think Arsenal could be quite dangerous. But if it's similar to the season just gone, then there's no reason to expect a sudden upsurge at all.
So what are you expecting this weekend?
Goodness knows. Honestly, I've imagined just about every possible outcome from around about a 5-4 scoreline to either team and anything in between. I think first games of the season are so notoriously unpredictable. I'm intrigued by the fact that I think that psychology obviously plays a big part often in high-level sport. And when you see Liverpool beat Barcelona 4-0, psychologically that does an enormous amount for a team, for a fan base, for an entire club, going into the season. And Arsenal are going into, although they've actually played well and got decent results for what it's worth in pre-season, there is a bit of a, oh God, here we go. I think lots of Arsenal fans are a bit expecting the worst, which is not the normal mindset going into first game of the season. But then first games of the season have a habit of throwing really crazy stuff at you. So this time last year, Arsenal played West Ham on the opening day, having had a really good end of the season before, won the FA Cup 4-0, a great pre-season where they looked super sharp, very stable group of players, brought in Petr Cech, and I think a lot of people sort of quietly thought, this could be the one. And then West Ham turned up and took them apart. Arsenal looked half asleep, and it was 2-0 to West Ham at the Emirates, and not remotely what anybody saw coming. So I guess a long answer to your question is God knows what's going to happen on the weekend, and I really think it could be a big win for either side, a draw, a narrow win for either side. I wouldn't know where to put a penny.
What sort of side do you think Arsenal are going to start with then? Because I think he's not going to rush Koscielny back. He has his rules in terms of who comes back when.
No.
So he's not going to rush Koscielny back. He's likely to have Holding and Chambers at centre.
Well, not necessarily. I think that there's a pretty strong feeling that Monreal, who played centre back for a good few weeks in a previous emergency, and did all right by the end, actually, and that was probably the making of him as an Arsenal player. When he went back to fullback, he really he was a different sort of player, really, for the experience. I've got a feeling that it will probably be Monreal with either Chambers or Holding. So at least there's some experience then Gibbs can slot in at left back. I mean, the obvious thing for for Liverpool to do is go through the middle with pace. I can imagine Sadio Mane being, a real threat and potentially having lots of room. And if he's full of confidence, then that could be an easy afternoon for him, and that's going to be something that Arsenal are going to have to try and probably stop at source. And I think the arrival of someone like Xhaka, and you've got Coquelin and El Neni, who's played quite well, gives them a stronger core in the middle of the park than probably they've had for a long, long time.
So he's got the option of not picking between Xhaka and Coquelin, but instead maybe against Liverpool this weekend going with both.
Certainly he'll go with two. I would be very surprised if he didn't go for two quite solid defensive players, given that they've got to try and provide some kind of shield in front of whatever happens. It's going to be a new central defensive, slightly experimental jazz sort of vibe going on at centre back for Arsenal. So yeah, they're going to have to do their utmost to make sure that's quite well protected.
And he'll probably have Sanchez leading the line, presumably, and
yes.
Walcott, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Cazorla maybe mooching around behind. Is that likely to be the outcome?
I think Alexis Sanchez is the likeliest to start up front, and judging from pre-season, if that's any kind of gauge, Alex Iwobi and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Joel Campbell all have very strong shouts.
Right.
I would expect probably a 2 out of those 3 to play behind Alexis Sanchez, with Ramsey and Cazorla and possibly. I think it'll come. I think Ozil and Koscielny and Giroud are probably much more likely to be aiming for the following weekend against Leicester. I don't think they'll play any. I'd be very surprised if they play any part.
Okay then, huge thank you to Amy. I'm not going to ask her to do a prediction because that's just simply, she made it very clear she wouldn't know where to start.
No,
wouldn't be fair.
I'm lost.
We'll go back to the studio and welcome back. That's the Cardigans with my favourite game. Going to sum this up as we get towards 7:30. Arsenal versus Liverpool. I've spoken to John about this. We had a long chat, didn't we, John? It was nice.
We have a lot of long chats now.
We do, John. We do.
Some on video, some in studios, some walking between the two.
Some walking between places, and very occasionally we go for a pint. Nowhere near as much as people think. Anyway, really, this is
amazed.
This is true. This is true. All right, what do we reckon then of Arsenal versus Liverpool this week, Rob? First and foremost, Arsenal. Amy's got into it there. They've got their issues. Players returning, centre back. There's a general vibe of around the gaff, but what I would say is that it's Sunday, it's 4:00, it's on the telly. We can say Arsenal have started slowly the last couple of seasons, but you're the main event. You're the business end of this first weekend. If you can't get up for this, what can you get up for?
I'm talking in terms of Arsenal.
In terms of Arsenal, yeah. First.
Yeah, I mean. Well, I wrote a preview for the Anfield Wrap about this. I'm under no illusions that we get a soft Arsenal. Don't go there and get a soft Arsenal. We may do something spectacular, but they won't just not turn up. Wenger, it's an interesting one. He's in recent seasons he's added one main player, and has it worked or not? To some degree, it's worked. There have been moments where it looks like it's worked when he had him as Ozil, and they looked better for him at certain periods. And then Alexis Sanchez seemed to be the key to the door for them. And Granit Xhaka on paper looks the sort of player who could be that defining midfielder that they've lacked for years and years and years. And yet they never seem to make the next step, or they continue to flatter with it. So as you
they
said,
bought Xhaka so early, it's almost not really touched the sides, if you know what I mean. They bought him ages ago. I keep forgetting they've bought him, and everyone keeps saying it to me. I'm like, oh yeah, he looked good. It's
a big sign. I mean, you know what? If we'd been allowed no transfer business at all from the end of last season, but we brought in Granit Xhaka, although I'd be fuming just the sheer disappointment with the lack of range of activity, I'd go, that would strengthen us quite considerably. For this game, they've got problems all over the defence, but in the forward positions in midfield, there's enough quality players there. The real interesting thing about their approach to this game is Wenger's been very keen not to get them working too hard too soon after the Euros. He even talked about whether a lot of these players would even be given anything near game time so far, but he seems to be allowing the likes of Alexis Sanchez and Ramsey on the pitch. That seems likely to be. What version of them we get, we don't know. Sometimes these things can go for you. They can actually be quite refreshed by not playing too much football pre-season, and the lads who played loads and should be really fit can look leggy. I don't know. It's hard to call. The one thing you can say, though, if from a Liverpool perspective, is Not that they're here for the taking, but is it we have a slightly better chance than we would have ordinarily.
What are your expectations, Alison? What do you want to see this Liverpool team do?
Score goals. I'm not sure about whether we have a slightly better chance. I mean, I was just thinking then when you said there's a kind of like meh about the place at Arsenal. Yeah, but like it's Liverpool. It's the first game of the season. Like that place is going to go off, right? I mean, they've got to be.
It's an easy team talk for Wenger.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, in some ways they have bought well steadily, even though there is, quite rightly, if you compare them to other sides, more generally they've bought well. If you compare them to the other sides that you think might win the league, they've not bought well at all. So it depends what's in Wenger's head. I think we've got to go there and try and score quickly. I mean, last season we didn't score quickly enough in enough games. So goals, it's all about goals.
It's about scoring first and scoring second. We had this on the Friday show. It's about scoring the second goal. If Liverpool can go and get the first, they've got to go and get the second, Rob. And I think that's the key thing.
Yes, but to do that, I think they need to dominate Arsenal here. And I think that's what Klopp will seek to do. If you allow Arsenal to come at you on their own ground, okay, you may weather the storm, and then you may get your phase, and you may get your goal, and then you need to get that second goal. But I think Liverpool will win this sort of game if they can play the game they played against at the Etihad last season. If they can play the game they played against, it's escaping me, at Chelsea, and in a number of other big occasions. If they can play that game, Liverpool should win it and be the team that comes off the park, not just winning, but winning it well. I don't see it being a dogfight and Liverpool edging it even 1 or 2-0.
I'll pick the Liverpool team and then I'll ask you to fill in the gaps. It's going to be Mignolet in goal, Klein at right back. It's going to be Klavan and Lovren. It's going to be Moreno at left back. It's going to be all three of Coutinho, Firmino and Mane will start. Do you think he'll start Origi in front of them, Rob, or do you think he'll go with the 4-3-3 with them as the front three?
The 4-3-3 with Origi to be the impact sub. And the middle three are the interesting bit.
And we'll pick me the middle three. Emre Can.
Emre Can's the shoe-in of those, I suspect. And here's the big question. Here's the one that'll have us all baiting our breath: is does the captain get the nod? Because there's a very strong possibility he goes, because he did last week at the start against Barcelona. I think that might have been his Arsenal team. He went with Wijnaldum and Lallana. Lallana in the number 8 position. He could go. Do you know what? Security first, and actually go Wijnaldum, Henderson. Or he could go Lallana, Henderson in a triangle in front. But it's 3 from 4, isn't it? There, who knows?
Okay, give me John. You think you're going to win?
Liverpool, yes.
Okay, win, lose or draw, Rob?
I think we'll win. Yeah,
Alison.
Win.
Okay, I'm going to go with the draw. This has been the Anfield Wrap this week. How exciting is it all? Well, you can be deflated in a moment, Rob, but we'll be watching Liverpool play on Sunday. Remember them. Watching your favourite football team in the whole wide world. Thanks for trampling over the end, lads. Went smoothly otherwise.
Coward.